What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Futurecast here on Rookie HQ for all you YouTube viewers, presented by PlayerProfiler.com. Make sure you are subscribed here at Rookie HQ. Make sure you hit a 5-star like if you're listening via podcast, because I have a very, very, very special episode for all you people watching. You know who my special guest is today. He's my ace, my main man. You know him, you love him, from Roster Watch, Mr. Cody Carpentier. Cody, what's going on, dog?
Not too much, brother. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. 3 weeks. We're going to be BOTG in Pittsburgh. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to see Alex. Can't wait to see Matt and the crew, and put a bow on this thing, and then be able to get out on the water a little bit more with my on the boat and stuff. So
Summertime is relaxing time for us football NFL draft people, but we talk NFL draft a ton. So make sure if you like NFL draft specific stuff, all our blue chips viewers, go over, check out TDR if you haven't already, the draft rankings. That's Cody's channel here on YouTube. You can find 2 episodes a week, I believe, or at least one on the Player Profile podcast feed. So that is where you're going to get all things NFL draft when it comes to Cody and myself collabing there. But today, here on the Futurecast, the brainchild that Cody once built. I'm not going to say founded. You weren't the OG, but this show would not be where it is today without you, my friend. So it's good to have you back. Good to have you back to the old stomping grounds. And today's episode is a banger, because we got to pick Cody's brain here. He said 3 weeks to Pittsburgh. We're almost there. We're about to put the teams to the players and make all of these math equations make a little bit more sense. But before we do that, before we get to the nitty-gritty, let's talk about, Cody, the 2026 rookie sleepers for us Dynasty sickos, because we know who the first overall pick is in our rookie drafts. It's Jordan Tyson. Psych! It's Jeremiah Love. But the first round's pretty crystal clear. And before we get into sleepers, what do you think of this class overall? I know I'm kind of just throwing you a question here that we didn't talk about on the show sheet, but I just want to ask you, what's your meta-analysis of this rookie class and how people should be managing their 2026 firsts right now?
Well, the 2026 firsts, I think you're going to be in an interesting spot. Specifically, I think that there is a sort of glass floor that's going to shatter really quickly, and I think you can go from guys that we think are going to be day one contributors to guys that might not touch the field for 6 weeks really quick.
Yeah,
I think that's my biggest concern with this class, and I think we've seen the last couple of weeks, specifically guys like Omar Cooper get elevated up aggressively. And I'm not going to sit here and say I dislike Omar Cooper, but I just think the overall resume that he brings to the table isn't one that I think harkens to a top 6-7 pick in Dynasty where he's getting put right now. And
right.
I've seen the Deebo Samuel comp and stuff like this, but I sit like a Parker Washington. I'm like, well, Parker Washington's a good football player. I think Omar Cooper's a good football player, but he's not great. He doesn't do anything great. He breaks tackles. He's really aggressive. I get that baseline stuff, but he's not a great wide receiver who's going to change the dynamic of your dynasty roster. And I think that's a problem when you get to the back half of the first round and then that glass floor hits. And if you don't specifically hit on the right situation in dynasty, or, a guy like, X, let's say Jonah Coleman lands in destination Y. He lands in Seattle and we're not going to see Zach Charbonnet until November. All right. Well, that's a situation that is going to assist you in starting out hotter earlier, but I think there's going to be some landing spots that suck, and I think there's some players that aren't quite prepared on day one to kind of come in and be, a Malik Neighbors or a Jamar Chase. And let's not forget, we can always bring this up. I know this wasn't the right process, but Minnesota did wait on Justin Jefferson until like week 3 because of Olabisi Johnson. And I'm not saying Justin Jefferson wasn't prepared, because clearly he almost won the Rookie of the Year award, but that stuff can happen with a lot of these guys, and they can get, suppressed a little bit. And that's what I have worries with once I get past, Casey Concepcion around pick 7.
Yeah, I feel like this year, maybe in particular, it feels as if if you don't have the 101, 102 in Superflex, trade back if you can. Try to get extra draft capital if you can, because at this point, you were really talking about, a stud back at the top, the number 1 overall pick, in Fernando Mendoza. And then after that, it's like, is there a discernible difference between Tyson and Concepcion? Is there a huge drop-off from Tate down to someone like I don't know, Mekhi Lemon, who seems to be falling a little bit. So I just feel like this is a class where you trade back. Problem is, and this is going to be the problem in the NFL draft as well, everyone wants the 27 picks. So if you think you're going to be, I could go from the 103 to the 107 and get a first. I don't know if that's going to be the case either, because everyone wants those coveted, highly coveted 2027 first. So, but I agree. I agree with the overall synopsis of the draft. It feels like we have a lot of variables to fall in. And I did just drop a first round rookie mock article over at playerprofile.com. Go check that out. And it does, after, kind of seeing it full through, this is a super flex edition. It kind of just felt like even the 103 was okay. All right. We'll see what happens. So yeah, we talked about the first round enough, but we're here with Cody. We need to talk about 2026 rookie sleepers. So make sure you stick around to get the good stuff.
In Dynasty Leagues, you must get your rookie draft right. You cannot get it wrong. That's why we have the Player Profiler Rookie Guide in partnership with Campus to Canton. They follow these guys from their freshman year through to the NFL. We're breaking these players down, everything you need to know about them and everything you need to know about the picks in your rookie draft. Oh, I have the 102. What do I do? I have the 108. What do I do? It's a complete player and strategy guide. It's just $25 on playerprofiler.com. You get it. You have the peace of mind that I'm going to make the right decision to build a super team.
The Futurecast, Matty Kiwoom, joined by Cody Carpentier. Cody, give us your first 2026 rookie sleeper that people need to wake their asses up about.
Well, I'll start here and say that all these guys I have currently have ADPs outside of pick 30. And The one that begins this is going to be guy that's currently sitting at pick 30, which is the back half of the third round, or the middle, I should say, of the third round, is Kevin Coleman Jr., wide receiver out of Missouri, 5'11", 174. This is a guy that has transferred a couple of times through his endeavors in college. And it's interesting. In Louisville, Mississippi State, Missouri, all kind of Power 4 level schools. And a guy that, at Missouri for 1 year, 66 catches, 732 yards, caught a touchdown, and was a fine piece to this offense, but wasn't the key cog. I think he plays a little bit bigger in film than he did in real life. We saw him down there at the Senior Bowl this year in Mobile. I think from a fantasy perspective, I think this guy projects as kind of a developmental type slot receiver. I think of, a couple of years ago, Taj Washington, Malik Washington both came out. I think they both end up in Miami. And now you're in a situation in Miami where Malik Washington is going to be a starter. Like, unless Miami drafts 6 receivers, like, he's going to be a starter on that team. He was in a 2026 all roster watch, all Senior Bowl team for us this year. A little bit undersized. We're a little bit worried about that. Skinny through the hips, skinny through the butt. But he's a wide receiver, and he gives some Greg Dortch feels. He gives, like I said, some Taj Washington feels. He broke out age 21 the last year, and I think he's quick. I think he's a fluid mover, good acceleration. I think he can create yak. It's part of his skill set. And he's a guy that, I have interest in, and I wonder where he's going to come off in the draft. And I think it's going to be somewhere in that kind of early 6th, late 5th round of the NFL draft. And his ADP right now is around pick 30. I think when this whole thing settles, it's probably going to be closer to the first pick in the 4th round. And generally that area, I like to attack running back. But the problem is with this running back class, it's not 25 deep. And I think that's going to, kind of like in the NFL draft, we see offensive linemen get shoved up early and edge rushers get shoved up early, even the tackles kind of scroll their way through. I think in these dynasty rookie drafts where generally we see the 4th and 5th round packed full of running backs, I think this year you're going to get a little more of an influx of these receivers like Kevin Coleman Jr. out of Missouri.
Kevin Coleman Jr., he's a little bit smaller, as you mentioned, 5'10", listed right around 180 pounds. Didn't really look all that explosive in terms of his combine numbers, but watching the film, does that seem like an issue to you when you watch him on film, when you saw him live in Mobile, or is that just, some guys just don't always test through the roof? What is it about Coleman, that we're kind of missing here?
I don't think we're missing anything. I mean, he ran a 4.49. I think he's fine. See, I'd be a little bit more worried, I think, if he was 163. Like, if he was more closer to like that Tank Dell weight, I think I'd be a little bit more worried about him. He's not puny. He's not Josh Downs. He's not, he doesn't, I mean, everyone's seen the Tank Dell video from a couple of weeks ago when he was training to get back, and you're like, is that a pencil or are those his calves? Like, you seriously cannot tell the difference. And again, he's had a catastrophic knee injury, but that's what he looked like coming out of college. And I don't have those same worries with a Kevin Coleman type who I talked to down at the Senior Bowl. And he, you really worry in this day and age sometimes until you get the answer to why'd you portal multiple times across, especially across the Power Five. Like, generally we might see a guy go from, Mississippi State down to, I don't know, Southeast Missouri State, and then back up, and he ends up at Missouri, something like this, right, where it's like a up, down, up. Instead, it was kind of straight across the board, and got to play with a bevy of quarterbacks that are at a solid level. And he picked up and continued to build every place that he was at. I don't like. I think this is a situation where it's opportunity more than anything. I don't think this guy has the ceiling of, I don't know, you could name 4 guys in this class, a ceiling of an Antonio Williams or a Skylar Bell or a Zachariah Branch. But I think this is a guy that can be a really solid 3. Like, you look at like a Jalen Naylor, his last couple of years in Minnesota. Now he goes to Vegas. He's going to get an opportunity to be a 2, and we'll see if he can do something with it. I think that's kind of where Kevin Coleman kind of fits in this whole dynasty ethos right now.
74th percentile college target share, slot guy. This is the type of profile that doesn't feel exciting at any point, really, but sometimes the value of a sleeper isn't always fantasy points, right? It's using a 4th and flipping them for a 3rd, flipping them for a future 2nd. There are some value bumps that we see throughout a guy's early career, first couple of years, as you mentioned. Gonna hit you with a little bit of a left field question. Give me like 2 or 3 offenses that you think he'd fit really well in. So if just as our listeners are tuning in, they're now putting Kevin Coleman on their radar, but they're unsure when they should pull the trigger. But if he gets drafted by these 2 or 3 offenses, we're gonna be a little bit excited about it.
I think I will start. I think potentially the Jets are interesting. A lot of opportunity in New York right now. You got Garrett Wilson, you got Adonai Mitchell. Isaiah Williams is a very dynamic, multifaceted player that can play special teams and stuff, coming out of Illinois, and punt return, kick return, receiver, things of that nature. I think that's interesting. I think you have to look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, Roman Wilson's there right now in the slot, but he hasn't. I mean, the sources we've talked to in Pittsburgh have said like he struggled last year. Specifically, people wanted to see him pop in Dynasty, and it didn't really matriculate because he couldn't pick up the playbook as fast. And that's a place I think that can definitely behoove a Kevin Coleman. We talked about Houston before with Tank Dell. Jalen Noel, same situation as Roman Wilson, had struggles with the playbook. And, I look at Tank Dell. We look at the volatility with that injury. We look at Jalen Noel, couldn't pick up the playbook. I think that's an interesting spot. Tennessee just added Wan'Dale Robinson, but it's an offense that just needs weapons, period. A guy that can play slot, a guy that can play a little bit of flanker, I think, in Kevin Coleman is another spot. Minnesota needs a number 3 right now. I think those are a couple of interesting spots. And I think you can always point to the New York Giants, who kind of like this slender body type that can kind of play in the slot. And they just brought in Calvin Austin and Darnell Mooney. But what really, you still got Gunnar Olszewski and, the corpse of Jalen Hyatt in that roster. It's like, they could just use weaponry and just pieces and consistency. And there's pieces to the puzzle with all these guys that we really don't have the answers to because we can't on this side. And, we're not in, we're sitting there interviewing these guys for 45 to an hour and hosting them 3-4 times. So it's kind of tough to pick up on some of these things, but these NFL teams should be able to do that. And I think that the Giants is another organization that he could fit into.
All right, Cody, give us another sleeper.
All right, I'm going to go with the next guy. His ADP currently sitting around 33. Interestingly enough, I really wasn't going to put this guy on the list. I think he should be ahead of Kevin Coleman in the whole conversation. I think he will end up being there because I think he will end up being an NFL 3rd-round pick. I think he's solidly in that conversation to be a top 100 guy. Ted Hurst out of Georgia State, one of my favorite wide receivers in this class, 6'3", 195. Another guy that goes down to the Senior Bowl and impresses. By way of Valdosta State, he was. Like I said, almost 6'4", 208, ran a 4.42. That was, I guess, the most surprising thing through this whole process was maybe his speed. Like, I think there was worry about Malachi Fields' speed. He ran a 4.61 out of Notre Dame, but it was like when you saw these two guys play side by side at the Senior Bowl, I don't think the speed was that big of a difference. I think Ted Hurst was faster, but 4.41 versus 4.61 is two whole different conversations. It's a guy that broke out age 20, had 2.42 yards per run last year, had over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's just a really fun wide receiver that I think closely comps to guys like Michael Gallup, Josh Palmer. I think a little bit of Traquan Smith, for those that remember Traquan coming out of Central Florida. He's just got that underrated dynamism. That's one of my favorite parts about Ted Hurst. And I think that there is definitely some upside in what he brings to your room is he can be, a true number 2 and with upside, especially in an offense. I mean, I remember there was a year when people once thought Preston Williams was going to push for like number 1 opportunities down in Miami when he was duking out with Devontae Parker, right? Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that Preston
I 100%
Williams?
remember that. Yes, I do.
If Preston Williams can do that, I totally have trust in Ted Hurst being able to carve out a number 2 role and push for a number 1 role. Had a lot of drops in 2025, had 7 drops, 9% drop rate, which ain't great. Don't think he separates well against man. He's target earner, double digit targets in 8 of his games in 2025. Great size, big hands, wins on slants, wins on back shoulder work, wins on digs. Like he's physical at the catch point. I don't think you're ever going to have that worry. And I think those are multiple traits that translate from a Michael Gallup comp that come to my mind. And for a guy like Ted Hurst, who currently is the back end of the 3rd round, I'm not sure he's going to stay back in the 3rd round. Like I said a second ago, I think this is a guy that's going to most likely push towards that 30, 29, 28 conversation as far as the overall number he goes to the board in your dynasty rookie drafts. But I mean, this has been one of the funner evaluations through the process. I just think he projects as a guy with elite upside, and he just hasn't gotten quite the opportunity. Again, Valdosta, Georgia State, very, very low levels of competition with, few opportunities to play against the big dogs. But, he was on Feldman's freak list last year. Like a 6'9", 3 cone I think he had coming out in college a couple of years ago. So I'm a big fan of Ted Hurst. I know there's a lot of people that are big fans of Ted Hurst, so this is not like some kind of galaxy brain thing. This is, I think people are, especially a player profiler. I know Chev, I think, talks about him. I think he's a big fan of Ted Hurst as well. So this is more of just like hey, continue to push this name up the board a little bit more and give some respect to Ted Hurst.
No, shout out to Chev, but no, you need to bring this guy up because he's just not getting the love that rookie, in rookie drafts right now. But this is the guy that's attached to a rocket ship. 6'4", 210 pounds, ran a 4.42, had the number 1 broad jump at 11.3 at the combine. Like you said, double-digit target earner, speed score, burst score, catch radius, all looks good. Good arm length, 76th percentile arm length. 1,900 yards over his last 2 years at Georgia State. This is a guy, if he gets the draft capital at 21 years old, he soars up potentially in the back end of the 2nd round. But if your rookie draft is now, you got to make sure you get Ted Hurst. Give me a couple offenses that you want to see him land on.
Oh, dude. I mean, give me anything. I mean, Ted Hurst is one that I think he's sort of, I don't know what the word would be. Offense, not dependent, offense independent. I mean,
he's just a weapon.
I think a very interesting spot now that Philadelphia added Hollywood Brown. They have Devonta Smith. I think if they traded an A.J. Brown to New England and you put a Ted Hurst in that spot where the expectation isn't sky high and he can be your big physical outside guy and you have a Hollywood, you have a Devonta Smith, you have Saquon, you got the tight end. I think that would be a very, 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 very interesting spot. I think about Chicago because, I know that they loved Olamide last year. They brought in Khalif Raymond this year. They love the sleeper guys like Jade Walker, but it's Rome, it's Luther. I think you play Luther in the slot a little bit more, 50-50 guy, and then you can put a Ted Hurst on the outside as well. I think that's a fun spot there. I think those are probably my 2 favorite, to be honest, heading into the draft.
One other spot I want to bring up, Cleveland. They have no pass catchers. And if Deshaun Watson wins the job, maybe a little Will Fuller.
You just trying to bury Cedric Tillman or what?
No, hey, listen. You know I like Cedric
I
Tilly.
got said Tilly.
You know I like said Tilly.
I got some
Said
shares,
Tilly.
man. Don't be trying to nuke my shares.
Well, it wouldn't be me nuking it. It'd be the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ted Hurst. All right, Cody, let's keep this train going. Give me another sleeper.
All right, all these guys currently don't have ADPs on Keep Trade Cut. I got two running backs.
Going deep.
We're going deeper now. This one, I just talked about Ted Hurst being one of my favorites. I think Adam Randall from Clemson might be my favorite sleeper. No, that's a lie because I have one more guy that I might like a little bit more. But I think Adam Randall might be the smartest. He graduated in 3 years from Clemson. He's a guy that played wide receiver, moved to running back less than a year ago, and he sucked. He was bad. You turn to the LSU game early in the year, you're like, this guy is blind, can't run the ball, can't find the hole. And by the end of the year, you're like, he's got a pretty good running back. This guy could run the football. Pretty decent. And he gives a lot of Cordero Patterson vibes. 168 carries. I think he had 36 receptions, over 1,000 yards, 13 touchdowns this last year. I wrote down Cordero Patterson. I think interesting. I had Cordero Patterson. I think Alex had TJ Yeldon, and we go and talk to him, and he said, like, the guys that he watches, I want to say he said Cordero, and I think he said like Cam Newton. And I was like, hold up, man, that's interesting because you're a running back, those ex receiver, and you're watching a quarterback. Right. He's 6'2" and 5/8, 233 pounds. 233 pounds. I thought he was going to run like a 4.57, just get under that 4.60 spot right there. He runs a 4.5 flat. Mm-hmm. He runs a 4.5 flat at the NFL Combine, which was like awesome. I was flabbergasted. I know it's not like elite or anything, but it's 95th percentile speed score. I think Player Profiler's got like a Latavius Murray comp on him or something like this. Right. I don't really look at the breakout age as much of a worry or interest here. 21 and a half years old, but again, it was because he switched to running back this last year in that offense. So Adam Randall, to me, again, just what he brings to the table is, I think, a lot of projection, a lot of upside. He had 49 targets last year. He's a pure pass catcher out of the backfield. Again, played the receiver position at Clemson before moving to running back. He's the fourth player in Clemson history to have 750 rushing, 750 receiving. He's kind of a cheater in this because he played both positions purely. Travis Zachary, CJ Spiller, Travis Etienne, pretty good category to be in. Like I said, he graduated early with a management degree. Then he went and got his master's this fourth year. So he's got a master's and a bachelor's degree. I think his feet have a problem sometimes keeping quite up with his brain and the speed of him, but that's a reps thing. Like this guy's, he's probably still in his first, probably 2,500 career, 3,000 reps at the position. I wonder when you're talking about 2027 and this guy's at 10,000 reps, what he looks like at the running back position. That's kind of where my mind goes with a guy like Adam Randall. And we talked about earlier, like generally fourth, fifth round, you're looking at running backs. This is one of those running backs that I want to get kind of in this category. One of the other problems, only 2 career games with 18 or more rush attempts. So I have no clue if he can take on some kind of big load, but he's 232 pounds and he's 6'3". Yeah. So if you want to talk about a guy that potentially, again, galaxy brain here, live with me for just a minute and a half here, put on 15 pounds in the next 400 days, keep your speed, and, go sit in Baltimore behind Derrick Henry and then just learn how to run the football. And I mean, you can wish cast a little bit here. I'm not saying he's the next Derrick Henry, but wouldn't that just be a hellacious situation to live in with a body like this, almost 6'3", over 6'3", almost 6'3" and a half, pushing potentially 240, 242. And then you just, I mean, come on, live with me for just a minute here.
Hey, I'm on the airplane. I'm sitting there in the co-pilot seat. I'm loving where you're going. Baltimore's a great landing spot. Adam Randall might be my favorite sleeper that you're going to talk about today because size, speed, IQ, above the shoulders, that checks a lot of boxes. And maybe this is speculation. Maybe I'm just hope casting a little bit on my own. But if Clemson had a better season and wasn't a complete dumpster fire, I think this guy would be a hell of a lot more exciting because he had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in his first year at the position at a major D1 program, a program in which was predicted by some of the best in the business to win the Natty. And I know they fell horribly flat in their face, terrible season for Clemson. But if they were in that playoff picture and they were playing all these meaningful games and Adam Randall was putting up this production, you might not be talking about him as a sleeper. You could be talking him as high as a top 5 back in the class because of how lackluster the class is as a whole. So I love the Adam Randall call. And also, people, Cody mentioned it, playerprofile.com, best comparable player, Latavius Murray. I'm old enough to remember Latavius Murray being exciting coming out of UCF, getting drafted in the 6th round, and having to wait a couple years for him to get some reps, and then he just went on to play till he was 72 years old in the league. Had a long, luscious, very productive NFL career, so I love the comp. Cody, let's get into the next sleeper.
Can I just say one of the other locations I'd like to see him land outside of Baltimore is Arizona. Like, I think that's a spot where, like, there's going to be zero expectation because of James Conner, Trey Benson, and they bring in Algier.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, that's one where, like, you sit there for a year or two, you're on the roster, sort of like Bam Knight's currently doing for no reason on earth. And then he gets that opportunity when all three of those guys are out the door. Like, that's another spot.
Yes, that's a great spot. He could learn a lot from James Conner too. That guy is a pro's pro.
Another bulldozer that I like in this class is C.J. Donaldson. I've gotten a lot of flack for my aggressive, in quotes, ranking of C.J. Donaldson, but here's the reason that I have C.J. Donaldson as my running back 10 this year, out of Ohio State. 6'2", 230 pounds. Broke at age 19.2 at West Virginia. No 1,000-yard seasons in his long career. I comped him to Kadre Ollison, which is one of my favorite comps. But the deal with C.J. Donaldson being number 10 is that he is the cutoff for me. So we talked about Randall, who's 9. I think everybody knows the 8 names ahead of him. Moss, Coleman, Allen, Johnson, Washington, Singleton, Price, Love. Everybody knows those names. But after Donaldson for me is the old dudes. It's the skinny dudes. It's the short dudes. It's the fat dudes. It's the boring dudes. It's the guys that fell off. It's like the stuff I don't want. It's the yucky stuff. And so when I say that, it's not because I think C.J. Donaldson is a 3rd-round pick in Dynasty. It's because when I'm picking at 408 and I have stacked up 4th-round picks because I've made moves for years to continually add 4ths down the line and 3rds down the line, and I have 404, 405, 407, and I'm like, well, this guy's probably a 5th-round pick. I'm taking him at 407, if that makes sense, if you're following my track here. Because I think C.J. Donaldson, similar to a guy like Adam Randall, but different because he was at Ohio State, and he got to play with James Peoples. He got to play with Bo Jack this last year, and there was high expectation for him coming from West Virginia to Ohio State. And I think that there's more opportunity. When you turn the tape on with C.J. Donaldson, it ain't fun to watch. He's just a bulldozer that goes down the goal line, gets opportunities here and there, and he's not a fascinating back. But I think he's a guy that can go into an operation and be a clear 3 on day 1. Or hell, dude, this is a guy that I believe, and this might sound completely cockamamie to people, I believe he could be the I think the Seattle Seahawks pick at I just had it up on my screen. They pick at like what, 220. When's their last pick? I just had it.
I'm not doing math. They're the 32nd pick, 7 rounds, a bunch of comp picks. It's in the 200s. It's a late pick.
213.
It's a very late pick.
So they go 32, 64, 96, and then 213. That's the point. All the way down.
I didn't know that. Okay.
If he's even drafted, I think that type of a situation is one that you look at and you go, well, we just heard that Zach Charbonnet's going to play this year, which I didn't know had to be told. I just thought that was a given. He was going to play. Not that I didn't think he was going to, play in September, but they have Emmanuel Wilson. They have George Holani. I think if you added a guy like C.J. Donaldson for your short area work, like I think that backfield can operate until Zach Charbonnet gets back. And people are going to say, well, that's freaking stupid. What are you talking about? But also, mind you, we're talking about, Jadarian Price at 32. We're talking about Mike Washington at 64 to Seattle. Seattle's brain might be in a whole different place.
They lost a lot of players, man.
Get this guy as a preferred undrafted free agent after the draft, and he could still give you, clear opportunities. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen guys like Philip Lindsay and stuff of the past come in and year one do some work. And this is a guy that we've seen at West Virginia and then go to Ohio State. You think Ohio State wanted him because he sucked? No, Ohio State didn't want him because he sucked. They wanted him because they thought he could be a clear 1-2 punch with James Peoples until potentially Bo Jackson came along as a true freshman and took over the backfield. Like, they didn't envision that was going to clearly happen, but it happened. And I think we're getting some value out of C.J. Donaldson because of that, because of Bo Jackson being Bo Jackson. People are going to know, and people probably think, what? If you haven't watched Ohio State, go watch Bo Jack. It's not the original, but it is the new. And I think Donaldson's a guy that you just have to have kind of on your windshield wiper that you have to leave your draft with. Whether you are at 407 or 501 or 504, whatever your last pick is or your second to last pick is, like, just make sure you're not the guy that gets donkey slapped because you forgot. That's the running back. People are going to fall in love with Seth McGowan's athleticism, and Jaden Ott did this 4 years ago, and Jam Miller only had a bad offensive line, so we're going to give him an opportunity, or Roman Heavy was on a national championship team. Miss me with that. Give me the 230-pound, 6'2" running back that Ohio State wanted, and I like the tape on him a little bit more than I do the rest of these chums. So give me CJ.
Can I throw out a comp for you? And it's not necessarily a play style comp or a player composition comparison. It's more of a career trajectory and potential comparison in terms of the ride. Can I give that to you?
I want to think.
All right, so all right, let's play a little game ski, Cody. Guess who I'm talking about again. It's not so much the player comp in terms of style or their measurables or athleticism. It's kind of just a path in which I could see Donaldson being on in the NFL in our fantasy leagues.
Are you going like UDFA?
You're getting warmer.
I kind of processing. What? No. I don't know if I got
two guesses.
it.
So fire one off from the hip, and then maybe I'll give you a second because you take it too long.
Maybe Charkanzik West?
Nope. More relevant and more recent than that.
More relevant, more recent.
For us fantasy gamers. Very relevant for us fantasy gamers.
James Robinson?
No, I do love me some James Robinson, so that could be. But I'm talking about Jordan Mason. Undrafted guy, sticks on a roster, big body guy. All of a sudden, he gets traded. He's a starter somewhere. Oh, my God, you just turn your 5th-round pick into an RB3 or potentially a 2nd-round, 3rd-round pick flip ski. What do you think?
Oh, no, I'm writing this comp down right now.
Yeah, baby. Jot it down. Give me the credit. All right, we talked about C.J. Donaldson. We talked about Adam Randall. We talked about Kevin Coleman, and we talked about Ted Hurst. We got one more rookie sleeper. Let the people hear it, my friend.
All right, last but not least is a guy that this guy did go to the Senior Bowl. So Donaldson didn't. He was a Shrine Bowler. This is a Senior Bowler that took Twitter by storm for about 2-3 days coming out of Mobile. Again, you're talking purely a 5th-round Dynasty asset right now. He had his pro day, and he weighed 14 pounds more at the pro day at Toledo than he did at the Senior Bowl at the end of January. So 2 months, puts up 14 pounds, still tests. I'm talking about Tyron Montgomery or Ty Montgomery 2.0. He goes by Ty on Twitter. His name's Tyron in all the databases. John Carroll University wide receiver from the Woodlands in Houston, Texas, former basketball player. Brother was a quarterback at like North Carolina A&T Central University Tech in the 3rd. And he during COVID was like playing catch with his brother, getting him ready to go back to school to play quarterback. And his brother's like, "You going to give this thing a shot or what?" And he's like, "Nah." I mean, he was going to walk on, play basketball at LSU. Then he goes to Nicholls State down the street in Louisiana, and he transfers to John Carroll and just bastardizes at the Division III level. Like, just nukes it.
Destroys it, yeah.
Almost 3,000 yards receiving, things of this nature. A complete sicko. Gets on the Senior Bowl's kind of watch list and shows up, and he does the most. He's dynamic. Catches, he was the ultimate high point receiver at the event. Like, I remember in years past, I remember hearing about Denzel Mims. I didn't get to see the Denzel Mims one. I saw the Michael Wilson stuff. There's like, Ty Montgomery was the guy. Like he stood out, almost more than Malachi Fields did, definitely more than Ted Hurst did at that specific event. Now, the problem, the difference between him and Ted Hurst, for example, is Ted Hurst athletically came through to the finish line and has played a little bit more football than Ty Montgomery, who didn't play in high school. 5'11", 204, just under 9-inch hands, which is a little bit small, but it's not like a quarterback. It's not a complete, outlier. It's not like a complete can't play. That's why they make sticky gloves. Got the long arms, ran a 4.55 at his pro day at Toledo last week, which we will translate to a 4.60, which is not great for a wide receiver, but it's fine. It just happens that kind of is his style. His style is kind of stretch, get downfield, stack the defender, which we did, interestingly enough, see him do against Caleb Hood. We saw him do it against Chris Johnson. We saw him do it against Davis and Igmanosin a little bit. Like, those are some of the better corners in this draft. Like, that's tier 2 at the cornerback position. He stacked these guys up at the Senior Bowl. His other athletic, testing wasn't great. His 3 cones of 7.3, not good. He shuttled 4.4, not good. Jumps are pretty solid. Like, that's kind of what we talked about. Like, he could levitate. That was the one thing coming out. I was like, this guy floats and then catches it and comes down, and his defender's already touching the ground. Like, he had a 10'8" broad, 35.5-inch vert. Those are respectable, not elite. This guy he does a lot. 119 catches last year, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, and he's super fun. And I think that this is one that, going to be a 5th-round pick in Dynasty. But when you talk about upside and potential, I kind of think of the maniacal one, Trey Palmer, coming out of Nebraska, who I think he ran 4.38, 4.39, which is considerably faster than what Ty Montgomery ran. But, I'm not going to write his 4.6 off, or 4.6, what it translates to, and just write that off and say it doesn't matter. But there are times in life and in sport that testing numbers don't translate to the football field.
Right.
Like, Adonai Mitchell looked like a 4.55 guy, ran a 4.38. Ty Montgomery kind of looks like a 4.4 flat guy, ran a 4.6. So we'll have to see what happens when, we don't have any GPS numbers. I don't know if NFL teams do either since it's Division III, but when he gets an opportunity, and hopefully, in preseason games, we'll get to see a little bit. But I have high hopes for Ty Montgomery. You might burn a pick here. He might not even be drafted in some of your dynasty leagues. But I think Ty Montgomery is one of the funnest players and is definitely my favorite story of the entire 2026 NFL draft process.
5th-round picks, you don't have to really get all your panties in a bunch when it comes to a 5th round. You burn a 5th rounder, you lose a 5th rounder, it's fine. It's when you draft a roster clogger in the 3rd and maybe even the late 2nd that can burn your dynasty team. So grabbing Montgomery in the 5th, hoping for the best, doesn't seem like bad practice at all. And again, we don't know exactly how everything is going to translate. It's a unique story, potentially the only one of its kind. And you talk about put on 14 pounds. You at home, you don't realize how much that is for an athlete to tack on 14 pounds. It ain't fat.
Well,
it's
training for the combine, so you're running every day.
And you're learning how to not only run, but run a way that you've never ran before because you're not a track guy, and doing it with 14 extra pounds. So where that settles, what that looks like, there's a lot left to be seen. Give me your 2 or 3 dream landing spots for this guy to get on, play in the preseason and work his way up the depth chart to potentially being someone we can maybe put in our lineup a year, 2, 3 down the road.
I think clearly number 1 would be the Rams. I think that would be a love spot where he can just go and learn from some of the best at all of those things. Like, I think of like the way Devonta runs his routes, the way he high catch, the high points and timing. I think Puka Nacua, just his overall game, those are great. I think learning opportunities for him. I think opportunity, you look at like Green Bay potentially. There's another one that I had, Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I love Dallas because there's, again, no expectation there, but the depth isn't like elite. So you're talking about, your top 3 right now is Pickens, Lamb, and Flournoy. And after that, it's like you got to beat out Jonathan Mingo. Okay. You got to beat out Trayshawn Holden. Okay. Now you're in the top 6. Mm-hmm. If they don't add anybody. And then if they add somebody, then you got to beat out Paris Campbell. I love Paris Campbell. I mean, but
That was like 2 decades ago, it feels like.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so I think you can crack the top 6 in Dallas and ride for a year, and there's nobody better, in my opinion, at this stage of the NFL at body contortion or contortion ability at the catch point than George Pickens, and Lamb isn't far behind. And I think that those are some things that Montgomery's really good at, and if you can, body type wise fit in right between those two guys, learn out from those guys, we'll see what happens with Pickens long-term in Dallas, but I don't think Montgomery's going to come in there and be a number 2 within a year, but
No, of
I think
course.
there's a lot of opportunity down the line for that.
All right, Cody. That's the show. Let everybody know where they can find you. I'm sure they already know it, but it's still worth putting it out there. Let the people know where they can find you.
You can find all my NFL draft stuff over at rosterwatch.com, from mock drafts to big boards to write-ups and things of that nature. We also do pod twice a week there. But then mostly the draft rankings show every single night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Just type in the draft rankings on YouTube, and then in the podcast feed, it's also there. And if you're listening on the Player Profiler podcast feed, we do pop up there twice a week, as Maddie alluded to at the beginning of the show. So you can go over to that podcast channel and just click that subscribe or follow button and lock in there 5 days a week as well.
Just 3 weeks to the NFL draft. I cannot wait. Make sure you're subscribed to Rookie HQ. Drop a like if you're watching. Leave a comment whether you're watching or listening. And if you're listening, give us that 5-star review. I'm the authentic one, Mr. Matty Kiwoom, and I will see you next time. Peace.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to playerprofiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.